So there you see some of the stuff, man. The hardware, you can see it. In the Tour Award, Bronze Star, um, Meritorious Medal. I'll tell you something about military medals. They're cool, but honestly, there are people who earn it and there are people who don't earn it. And
Mm,
so that's just the way that is. It's a lot of young service members that don't always get their just due. And
yeah.
I'll just say that sometimes rank does what it does, but I've got no regrets about wearing my country's uniform at all.
Welcome back to another edition, another episode of Church After Hours. We have a really special guest this week, none other than my uncle Gary Dangerfield. And we're going to have a real serious conversation talking about interracial marriages, interracial dating. But before we get into the heavy talk, this guy's like the black Mel Kiper, or we call Mel Kiper the white Gary Dangerfield. This guy has a lot of information about the NFL and NFL draft. He's an insider telling me about players that nobody knows about before they blow up. But something interesting happened in our hometown, and Justin Fields is no longer a Bear, man. What do you think? Did the Bears make the right decision, or did they make the wrong decision, giving up on Fields so early in his career?
I think there are a lot of different ways to look at this. When the first one I says, I don't think they gave up on him as much as the general manager wanted to feel like he wanted his guy to come in and lead that organization. And for right now, we all believe that's Caleb Williams. I think Justin Fields has a ton of talent. He's been good from day one since coming out of high school, the dual threat. I think ranked 1 or 2 with Trevor Lawrence, who's now with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So he's a guy that's always had talent. And I think he'll continue that. But I think as far as knowing whether or not they did the right thing, we won't know that until Caleb Williams' rookie contract is up, or whoever they draft. It may be Jay Daniels. But, I've said it before that if you were looking for an ideal quarterback to run that offense or be a professional quarterback, it was Justin Fields. The baseball background was really important to me because the
Mm,
guy could do a lot of different things with the transfer of his weight. And there were questions about his arm talent, which I'll still never really understand. But at the end of the day, we all know as Bears fans is that he didn't have the pieces around him to get better right away. And when they brought in DJ Moore, we saw some of the things that he could do.
right.
But when you got guys that are dropping contested footballs, you're not going to win football games. Guys that are wide open that are dropping groceries right in the middle of the aisle. That's not a good look. So,
That's a
Right.
fact.
at the end of the day, if he had pieces around him, I thought he could have went on to do a little bit better. But right now, he's with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm pulling for him to eventually get a starting position there or earn that starting job and
Yeah.
lead Mike Tomlin to another championship.
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, I agree with you. I'm in Columbus. They love their Buckeyes, no matter if they're, in the college or in the league. And they were really hurt. A lot of people from Ohio State adopted the Bears as like a second team because they wanted to see Fields do well. And I think he will do well. I don't think he'll play this first year because they got that contract where if he plays over 50% of the snaps, the Bears draft pick goes to a fourth rounder. So I don't think the Bears or the Steelers want to give up a fourth rounder versus a sixth rounder. But I think he'll do well under Mike Tomlin. The Steelers has just always been a good, solid organization that does everything the right way. It's the kind of organization you want to be with. So I wish that kid nothing but success.
Well, it's just not like Mike Tomlin. You got Art Smith, who's the former head coach of the Atlanta Falcons and considered an offensive guru. He saw Justin Fields up close and personal when the Bears handed down the beat down in Soldier Field. So he knows what
Yeah.
Justin Fields is capable of doing
Right.
and how he
Right.
wants to employ him or deploy him basically in his offense. So
In the right system.
in the right system. You got an RPO with Najee Harris and you got George Pickens. Those are some dangerous weapons to
strong
have
running back.
surround
Yeah.
you. Yes, a strong running back, and you get him a
Yeah.
tight end that can catch. He's going to be doing the same thing he did in Chicago, but I think he'll have a chance to have even more success because he's in a stable coaching situation. We don't know what Eberflus' future will be like if the Bears don't do well. He can be
Right.
gone.
Yeah.
Sean Wilden can be gone. So now whoever's the quarterback there is starting all over again. So
Yeah.
there's no guarantees that this thing will work out. But like I said, I'm a Bears fan. I'm praying for him. I'm just not running out to go grab a New Jersey. So there you go.
Yeah, and if Caleb Williams not saying that painting your fingernails makes you in the LGBT club plus community, but just in case he is, Chicago has a large community that he will be very comfortable there.
No doubt about it, man. I think too much has been and probably put into play with that. I mean, he's
Yeah,
22 years old, man. Think about some of the
right.
things we did. I'm
Yeah,
59, and you'll
yeah,
never know what I did at 22 years old. I'm not saying, hey, I painted my nails in high school, but they were clear because I
Right.
didn't want
right,
my fingers to get crushed playing football, and I had my gloves on. So no
right.
one ever said that. We had before they had the spandex, we had pantyhose we were putting on to keep us warm in Chicago. And nobody knew that. You used to get these guys in the locker room putting on women's pantyhose because it was close to their body. So I know that's a little different, but I think Caleb, if you look at him in his totality, we haven't heard of any issues off the field, and
Right,
That's
that's more
true.
right.
concerning to me, especially with the recent events that have taken place here in the last 72 hours involving a certain player from another organization. So
Yeah,
I'm concerned with the character part, and that's why
right.
I had such love for Justin, where he was a leader, and I
Yeah.
saw that in him, and he had outstanding character, which I think will continue under Mike Tomlin's development. So let's give the kid a chance if he's going to be our quarterback and see what he can do.
Yeah, all jokes aside, a lot of these kids are doing different things, and painting fingernails is not far fetched from anything that the youth is doing now.
No,
The only
I didn't have a cell phone until I was 28. So what does that tell you, right?
the only thing that gave me pause about the dude, man, when he lost, who they lose to Notre Dame, and
He
he's in the
lost Notre
stands
Dame.
crying in his mom's arm. I just didn't like that. Like, I understand you get emotional, but go to the locker room, do that. You know what I'm saying? I just didn't like that. I guess that's the old school guy in me. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, I mean, yeah, the word like in itself, I think it didn't foster confidence in you that he can
yes,
handle adversity. And
right.
so when you see that and it validates what you are already thinking, it's not as so much as you don't like it. You're looking for a leader that can foster handling adversity. Okay, you
Right.
lost in a
Yeah,
college football game, it's painful. He was showing a different kind of emotion, and then
Yeah.
right.
it's different because I think about my mom, may she rest in peace.
Yeah,
If I can do this,
Yeah,
my
yeah.
junior year of high school, we were playing in the playoff game, and I think I told Dee this story a while ago. I was being a little aggressive, and I remember hitting this guy going out of bounds, and the ref threw a flag, and it hit me in the back of the head, and I could hear my mom's voice among every voice in the crowd. It told me that was stupid. I knew it was her. I heard it to this day. I will take that with me. And at the end of the day, I'm not jumping up in her arms in the stand. She's not having it. So
Right, right.
everything is different these days, like
yes,
Kurt said. And I mean, she was tough on me, bro. I'm living proof right now that you don't have to be close to your parents to be a product of being good at something. And she was responsible for that. So I don't know what relationship he has with his mom.
Yeah.
I know the only concerning part right now is his dad that he wants a
mm,
piece of NFL franchise. So I don't see that happening, but
Nah.
that's just me. So I'm gonna try to
yeah.
Right.
stay on point here, guys. I apologize
No, we good.
if
We
Nah,
I
it's
answered
answered
all
your
somebody a
good.
question.
little
You
off
good. You
script, but
good.
It's
You
all
good.
good.
I think expand upon the NFL draft. There's a lot of depth at quarterback. There's a lot of depth with the receiver spot. There's a lot of depth with some edge rushers that may not be the first four guys off the board. They're guys down the board that with me playing with my draft simulator and doing my research, film and study wise, that you may have a Richard Dent in this draft and don't even know it. Are you
Wow.
willing to go and do that? And so people are always admire the shiny objects that are right in front, but the great or the outstanding coordinators, I'm sorry, the outstanding scouts, they go and find the diamonds in the rough. And there's some diamonds in the rough out there that people don't know about.
Yeah.
This is a kid
Yeah,
from Virginia State that's a hell of a cornerback. Excuse my language, that guy
No,
may
you
be a
good.
sleeper. I just believe that. And
Yeah.
so you don't have to play football to know what right looks like. And that's at the end of the day. If a guy ain't got heart, he ain't got heart. If a guy
Yeah.
can
right.
turn around with somebody and make plays when the ball is thrown and he's reacting to it, he can play the game. So I'm excited, man. I know it's 24 days until April 25th. So
This
it's on
dude
my
takes off
calendar.
work. He
And yeah, like well, we got TVs at work, but
right.
the first round doesn't start till I get home. But I'll be home by the time it starts if I'm not in physical therapy. But I'm excited about the draft, man. I would love to see the Bears trade back at 9 because they only got 4 picks, and that's kind of concerning. I know everybody wants the
Yeah, it
kid from
is.
Washington, Duze. I think Neighbors to be gone. We know Harrison to be gone off the board. So what do you have left? You got maybe
Yeah.
one tackle, two that maybe left, and you got a couple of edge guys. But I think there are organizations that are desperate for a quarterback, like the Raiders and the Broncos. If you
Boy.
trade back one or two, you still stay in the teams and you can get what you want. We need a second round draft pick. If we
Yeah,
get two more picks, second and third, then
you
I'm good
good.
with that. But you're gonna have to
Yeah.
trade off a 9 to get that.
Let me
Yeah.
ask you this. This is a loaded question. I'm sure you'll have an answer because it's only your opinion. Who do you think will be the best draft pick in this year's draft?
I like Michael Penix Jr. Yeah, I like Michael
I, I
Penix
just
Jr.
I
for a
just
lot
told my
of
sons this me and the
I
boys
like him
just
for a
talked
lot of
about this
reasons.
last night. I just
Yeah.
said this. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I like him for a lot of reasons. And the guy, he has come through adversity. He's had some serious
Yes.
injuries. And people were like, oh,
Multiple
he
serious
didn't run a
injuries.
4.4. I mean, how many quarterbacks that you know of in
Right.
the National Football League Hall of Fame that ran a 4.4? Steve
Right.
Young may be the closest one to that. All right.
Right.
I mean, there's too much emphasis sometimes put on. We just let a guy go. They ran a 4.4, 4.3. All right.
Right.
He can
Right.
squat
Right.
500 pounds. So don't talk to me about that. Can this guy be a surgeon? Tom Brady was a surgeon. Peyton Manning in his prime was a surgeon. And that's what you want guys to do is to work from the pocket. People got upset with Caleb because it's always playing hero ball. Truth be told, his line was not that good.
Yeah, they was
All right.
horrible.
So he had to run for his life a couple times like Justin Fields had to do. But I really believe Michael Penix can be that guy. And I think we had this conversation before. I think people sleep on Bo Nix. That's
Mm.
just me. They sleep on Bo Nix. So it's all about where you go. The organization will give you a chance to develop and not rush you into a fist fight when you're not ready for that. And so at the end of the day, I think about your hometown team, the Bengals. What do they need? They can use another receiver. They got some guys, but you may lose that one guy that's looking for more money. So
Right.
the big thing now is we need a guy on a rookie contract. Yeah, I got it. All right. And
Yeah.
so at the end of the day, what are you doing that's best for organization long term? Are you bringing in real talent? That's
Mm.
what it becomes. That's what it becomes for me. But Michael Penix.
Yeah. I agree. I totally agree. I think the Raiders gonna end up with him.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Well, they're also liking JJ McCarthy,
Yeah.
who has a lot of talent. He's a hometown kid. I want to see him do well, and he's gonna
Yeah.
have to time from time develop. But playing behind Gardner Minshew, he may learn a few things, but at the same time, he may be rushed into play right away too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uncle Gary
Yeah.
know his stuff, man.
He do, man. He a monster
Hey,
when it comes to this NFL stuff for real.
but before we get into our main topic, would you give us a brief, maybe the highest level of your Army career
Mm.
Yeah,
that you
I
got to?
started. Yeah, I started out, and I need to make sure everyone knows this. I started out as an enlisted soldier at the age of 22. My
Mm.
own college football career came to an end because someone told me that I should have got a tutor for my classes. So academically, that went south. But I decided to join the Army. In addition, I accept the responsibility of taking care of my oldest daughter, Ashley. So I wasn't going to pass up on that. But I joined the Army in '87 and was enlisted for 3 years and returned back to college after my 3 year stint in Germany. And went through ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Program, and ended up being commissioned as a second lieutenant in the community of armor, which is tanks. And you can see some of the stuff behind my wall back there. Very proud of that. And the highlight of my career, obviously, I think was obviously being a company commander of an armor unit. And for me, that was like having to be in a football team, and that was like being a coach for a football team. As a matter of fact, one of the my guide on the wall says, "Coach, this is what my guys gave me." So I had that
Wow.
mentality of developing depth, and I had that
Nice.
mentality of making sure they were physically fit. And I don't know if you know about the Army, but tankers are traditionally considered to be heavy guys, and they like donuts. But these guys, I try to run them in the dirt. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. We had the highest PT score in the battalion of 250 when 300 is the overall average, the most you can get. So making sure these guys are physically fit and can go through the long nights of training meant a lot to me. But I would say that young rank as a captain was the most important to me. But I
Mm.
obviously went
Young
further.
rank.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool. So we earned the equivalent of 2 Top Gun titles, which is like winning 2 national titles. And we also earned this thing behind me called the Draper, which is given to the best army unit in the brigade. And so the Top Gun trophy was pretty cool for me, but I had a great crew as well, and they didn't let me screw up. But the rank I retired with was Lieutenant Colonel. It's the one that
Mm.
saw me in a way that I don't think about the rank. I think about the opportunity to serve others and get better because the people are around me. And a lot of people now, even as retirees, they focus in on that. And it's an achievement, no doubt about it. I didn't get court martial. I'm not in Leavenworth, so those are positives. I mean, I've covered a couple of examples. I've covered a couple of stories about that as a spokesperson. So, in real talk, man, the military is not an easy life for a lot of people. You're either going to be with it or you're not going to be with it. There are
Right.
those that come in for 4 years, they get out and they go off and do great things. There are things that come in hoping to do 4 years and they're gone within 27 months. So it's a challenge, and people have this perception of what it is and what it isn't. We won't get into that, but to answer your question back in short term, I retired with the rank of lieutenant colonel proudly.
Nice, beautiful.
That's dope. That's dope, man. And
Let's go.
let's get into tonight's topic, to tonight's discussion, talking about interracial marriages and interracial dating. We had a conversation 3 or 4 shows ago.
In relationships, period.
Yeah, because we had a conversation, a couple shows ago where we did a 3-part series of dating and relationships in the 21st century. But we wanted to talk about interracial dating and what that looks like. You know what I mean? And just to give some background, a lot of people may not know, it was a good movie called Loving. It was a Supreme Court case in 1967,
True story.
where the state of Virginia versus the Loving family. Mildred Loving, who was a Black and Native American sister, and her husband's name was Richard Loving, how they wanted to get married. And this is a really, really good movie, really good story, talks about their journey and how they got to this point. So before we dive deep into the conversation, so when you think about interracial couples, interracial dating, your wife is Caucasian, when you saw that story or even learned about that information, how did it make you feel knowing that, in your lifetime, people wasn't allowed to be married that wasn't of the same race?
Right. I mean, their story is true love, and I give them all the credit for what they had to endure, not only just from both sides of the aisle. You know what I'm saying? So you're having to negotiate through that. And obviously, Kurt, your wife is Caucasian. I know you've had to deal with that. And, imagine going into a restaurant and having eyes on you and feeling that. But you've got to be comfortable with who you are as a human being, okay? To stave that off. No one knows what you're really thinking, but you can show that by your communication. If you're dropping your head, you're walking in, they see that. And they know why you're doing what you're doing sometimes. But back to that story, they showed a tremendous amount of strength during a very difficult time period in our
Right.
history. And a lot of folks don't know that obviously there's states that ban interracial marriages. And we're not just talking Caucasian and Black. I mean, there are that's the more obvious one
Right.
for a lot of people. But at the end of the day, I admire them for the strength and the courage they showed during a very difficult time in their very loving relationship. So it wasn't easy, and I can only imagine some of the things they went through.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything that Uncle Gary just said, and I think about how much courage they had in a time that they were doing physical things to our citizens in this country, and over love, which some people don't get into, some people dabble their foot in, and some people play with. So I think they were courageous, both of them, because I mean, it's one thing to be Thomas Jefferson and do it undercover,
Right.
know what I mean? But they did it in the open.
Yeah. And that story was always intriguing to me because, they both had a lot at stake. They both could be killed, and to see that they stood on their morals and they stood on their principles, that they really loved each other and fought, you know what I mean? And it was cool to see, how their story, came to fruition and the laws and everything got overturned. Do you think we'll ever see a time in our history or in our country where brothers and sisters that date outside of their race won't feel uncomfortable when they go inside of a restaurant? You know what I'm saying? Because a good friend of mine, Caucasian sister, she's a co-worker. She's over in Peace Corps right now, over in Gambia. Her fiance is Gambian. Brother tried to talk to a lot of different sisters. A lot of sisters were like, he's a square, he's a lame, he's he's a nerd, but he's a smart dude. The dude is a doctor, right? Women wouldn't give him no play, and as soon as he started dating her, he started getting these looks. He comes over and hangs out with me and the boys from time to time while his fiance is out of the country. And we talk about these things. When will that ever change, or do you think it will ever change where people won't have to endure those looks and that guilt that some people try to give you with their looks and stares?
No, I don't think it'll ever change. I mean, I just think that's just the way society goes. But like I said before, you got to be comfortable with who you are as a human being to get through that. And I don't know if you guys can see it, but I'm wearing the top from my junior college in Hutchinson, Kansas. And I remember a story. I can tell you this with all honesty. I walked into a restaurant in Hutchinson, Kansas, which is a great place. Don't get me wrong. And there was nothing wrong, but you can feel when I walked into that restaurant with two Caucasian females who were teammates of mine from the track team, everybody stopped. And it was weird. But then the guys that told us to come and sit down with them were some of our white former teammates or white classmates. And all of a sudden, everybody started talking again. So you
Wow.
don't know what that is, but you got to start with yourself about who you are first and be comfortable with that. And that person that you're with has to understand they've got to be good with who they are. Because I always tell I always say this in the family. Your mom hates you more than anybody else. I love that lady to death. I always say everybody has an opinion. Everybody has an opinion about something. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? So how do you let that opinion of others own you? How do you
yeah,
let that stop you from moving forward? Whether it's your kids in school right now, and I know the situation Mill went through. I get all that, but at the end of the day, that kid showed courage, and I'm trying not to get emotional thinking about that.
yeah,
But that's
yeah,
what it comes down to. You got to have courage about who you are and conviction about who you are. That guy's going to be a leader, period. All right.
yeah,
So that's what I'm talking about. And if he decides to marry outside of his race, then we're supportive or we're not. That's the way that goes. I just see human beings, man. And my mom said it to me when I was a teenager in high school. I mean, once again, my teacher, she told me, she said, you know what? You're going to marry outside your race. And I thought about it
she
for
used
a
to
minute.
say
I'm
that
like,
about you and Jay. She used to say that
yeah,
about
you know what
Jay
I'm saying?
too.
She said that, but the way I saw it is that she saw me as a human being that had enough personality to go outside and be comfortable in an
Hmm.
environment like Kirk would tell you. We comfortable wherever we go. We know we cool. We good with that. But
Right,
sometimes there are people who will try to rain on your parade. That's just the way that is. And
right.
at the end of the day, I didn't really start doing that, seeing it like that because I dated in high school. I had a few Caucasian friends I dated, but maybe actually one or two. And then in high school, obviously, I dated my oldest daughter's mom, and so she was black. And so at the end of the day, I just never really thought about color. The person I was cool with. It just so happens to be that person was that. And so uh, sometimes I think that gets lost. People, because they don't see that. They don't know
Yeah,
that about you, that I got a feeling for this person.
yeah,
And that's how I feel about it. That's what it
right,
is to me. It still is to me,
yeah.
And so when you catch it on both sides of the aisle, it is what it is. And you still hear loose comments on social media about whether it's Instagram about someone dating someone of their own choice. Be you, be comfortable. But no, I don't think we'll ever get to a point to where our society will be completely comfortable with seeing those two people walk in. They go, yeah, they're here. All right, let's deal with it.
See,
Like,
yeah,
that's what it
Hey,
is. Yeah, they're here. Like, let's deal
you,
with it. It's
you know,
funny to me though.
yeah. I was gonna echo exactly the funny part to me because, to be all the way honest, I still to this day, when I see a sister with a white guy, I look myself. And it's not because the reason I think people are looking at me, but it's just I like to see the dynamics. You
Yeah,
know,
it's also classical conditioning too. What do you think? Classical
absolutely,
conditioning, where you see,
absolutely,
like, oh, okay, cool.
right, yeah.
That's where it goes. So,
Yeah, I totally agree
yeah,
with that. But
yeah.
it's something that you're dealing with people's perceptions. You're
Oh
dealing
yeah,
with you're dealing with people's mirrors. They're putting their mirror up to you,
That's right.
and looking at you and saying, "Oh, I never do that." Or a lot of times, man, I wish I would have
yeah,
seeing what old boy was like in college that I messed with.
yeah.
You never know what
You
people are
never
thinking.
know. You
You
never
never know what
know.
people are thinking. A lot of times, the biggest thing you can do is not be too much in your head, because no, I don't think it'll ever end.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think the other thing for me is in the military community, it's common. I mean,
Right.
it's common. And like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, bro.
Oh, I
It's
didn't
common.
know that.
Yes. Oh yeah. You've got a bulk of interracial couples in the military, both dating and married. And so at the end of the day, you'll see all different type of races that are mingled together. Whether it's on base or off base. Obviously, we live off base. I'm not in the army anymore, but even like I said, I'm in a retirement community. And the majority of my retirement community, you've got Asian, Caucasians, Black, Caucasian. I mean, people who see it any other way are people who have issues with their own life, and I
You
pray for
know,
them.
you know what? Now that you say that, people that put their life on the line, I would think they don't really get into too much
Nah,
to what other people think.
no, you're like, nah, really, like,
why why would you worry about what somebody
no,
thinks? Like,
no.
Yeah.
yeah,
You can go to my job and ask them like, hey, what do you think Barry thinks about things? Like, you got all week, So at the end of the day, it's just like it goes back to what I said. Everybody has an opinion. And if you let somebody else's opinion own you, like even my nephew, if he said, hey, I think so. Okay, bro, appreciate your opinion. I appreciate the knowledge. Knowledge
Yeah.
is free. LL Cool J said you can learn from a dummy. If a dummy went out in the middle of traffic, you probably don't want to do that because
that's
you're gonna
right.
get hit.
That's
And
Right.
right.
so how do you value information? How do you
Yeah,
value someone else's feedback? And who is it? Me and
yeah,
my brother have had conversations that can make both of y'all uncomfortable. But you know what? I'll take a bullet for him any day of the week. All
Yeah.
right. And we got to say it in our house, get mad, get over it, and move on. It may
mm,
take a couple days, but we
Yeah.
get to a point to where we do that.
Right.
So,
Right.
but once again, it's somebody's opinion. Will we ever move on from that? I highly doubt it, but live your best life and enjoy your best life. So my daughter currently right now, I don't think about it. She's gonna date whoever she wants to date. As long as they treat her with love
yeah,
and respect, I got you. And
mm,
I told the gentleman that came to my house that she's seeing right now, I said, hey man, we share a responsibility. I didn't have to go any deeper than that because you knew exactly where I was coming from. And so at the end of the day, if you can be as honest as you need to be with someone about who you are and what you're about, then it is. And I'm actually reading a book right now. I think it's called Colorblind. And it's the actually opposite of what we would think it is. And I'm trying a lot of interesting stuff that I kind of already knew, but then just the way people think, it's amazing. So, I'm so proud of you guys, man, that you're pillars in your community, whether it's the entrepreneurial piece or whether it's the restaurant, whether it's doing the community thing with the kids, you're going to see couples that don't look like the normal dynamics, and so they'll know if you're uncomfortable seeing them the way you see them.
Yeah.
You're greeting somebody coming in your business. They know that.
with
And people, you can't hide. You can't hide how
yeah.
you are.
With that being said, I got a question for you, brother Insight.
I knew this was coming.
How did
Yeah.
how did our community treat you when you married a Liberian woman, first generation American, Liberian American? Was there any, you know,
Hostile feelings.
was there any funny thing? You know how we like to tell, sarcastic or condescending jokes. Was there any of those things that went on?
This is why I love my brother, man, because I did not see this question coming. I thought he was about to hit me with something else. But it's such a great question. And as JD said, I hope that I can give you a good answer. Yes. I won't name names, you know what I mean? But I had family members that, wasn't in love with the fact of the woman that I was marrying because she was West African Liberian. People said, is she trying to get with you to get her green card, to get her citizenship, not knowing that that she had been in America since she was 11 years old in the late 1980s, before the Civil War broke out in Liberia, before her mom, dad, and brother came later in the early 90s. So yeah, I heard it from some family members, and it was discouraging, it was hurtful, but they were speaking from a place of ignorance. So again, like my uncle said, I didn't let their opinions of me affect me. You know what I'm saying? It hurt to hear them say that, but again, I knew who she was, and I knew who I was getting, and it was nothing that they could say or do that would, sway me from being with her. And we've been married now 22 years. Next month, it's funny, my son graduates on our anniversary, May 25th. So I feel like I made the right decision of choosing her,
Big
and I'm
ups.
forever grateful for
Oh,
her
no
Big
for
ups.
doubt.
taking my hand in marriage. So
No
yeah,
doubt.
I did hear some things, and I'm glad you asked that question because I would have never thought to even bring that up on this podcast.
Well, I mean, that's what we're having this conversation, buddy. At the
Yeah,
end of the day, Kurt, outstanding question. I think at the end of the day, like it goes back to what we said. People's opinions matter to a certain extent. If it's your immediate family, your mom, your dad, the obvious things, hey man, I think you shouldn't go out with those guys that probably gonna rob a building or something. Okay, I get that part. But then the things that are deepened by our spirit that we find love and comfort with, like your beautiful wife, that took a lot of courage to move forward and say, okay, I'm gonna do what I gotta do. And 20 something years later, you're still happy. That's what matters to me, man.
yeah,
And 24 years later, this woman up in here, love her to pieces. You know,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we got to be comfortable. If this thing fall apart tomorrow, I got no regrets. And I think you probably feel the same way, and you would
absolutely.
feel the same way.
Yeah,
I
I
did what
do.
I felt like I need to do.
Yeah, I absolutely do. And the reason I asked that question, D, is because, you know, me myself, sometimes I will attribute things to race, and then I'll talk to my friends, and it's no, my wife does that too. It's more of a woman thing. It's so funny when I hear those things because once again, I'm dealing with my perception.
Mm-hmm.
This whole thing is about our perception. You know, um, when you're the only reason I think that someone can affect you if you care about someone's perception.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And unfortunately, a lot of times we care too much to where it can hinder us, right? And let's go into this direction because it's on topic and it's on brand with tonight's dialogue, and it's something that kind of took over social media. And God rest the dead. Y'all know I was a big Kobe guy, and we look at his dad having to sell his ring because
Mm.
they had a rocky
Having
relationship.
having to.
Well, I mean, let me back up. Right,
Okay.
we're assuming that they had some financial difficulties and they needed to sell the ring to get the money.
Okay,
We don't know
needed.
if
I
that's true or
like
not.
that.
That's what we think, right?
Okay.
But the thing is, his relationship with his parents was strained because
Yeah.
he was young. They didn't want him to get married. They said he was too young. He was making a rash decision. And from what I read and understood, they wasn't the biggest fan of Vanessa. So the fact that he was able to go against his parents' will and still marry her, even with his scandal, what happened in Denver, she stuck by his side, could have took him up top. She in California, she could have got everything. So that's to me when I was like, you know what? Kobe's parents might have not respected his decision, but that day I felt like they should have respected his decision because she could have took him for everything and she would have got everything she wanted and some because he was, caught with his pants down. But when you look
Literally.
at right, literally, when you look at what his parents did and how, you know, they had a strained relationship ever since he decided to make that decision. When you think about that, like what does that make you think of?
That makes me think of just love and what the God rest the dead, God rest Kobe, and God rest the brother that saying, "What you won't do for love."
Bobby
I
Caldwell.
believe, Bobby Collar, yeah, Bobby Collar.
Yeah,
Yeah,
But I think one thing we have to consider too with Kobe was he was young.
he
And
was.
and then youthful and aggression happens. Some people recover from it, some people don't recover from it. And
yeah.
I'll be the first to tell you, I wasn't a huge Kobe fan when he was alive and when he was doing what he was doing. But I also remember where I was when he passed, and I
Mm.
remember sitting in the aircraft, getting ready to take off, and I was in the first class.
You
Life
was
is
coming.
good
You
at
was
the
coming
time.
from
I,
Cincinnati.
I
You
was
was
I was
coming from
coming from
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati,
Yep.
and I'm sitting in first class with my TV on, and the guy who wasn't in first class, but he's right behind me, he hogging the TV. He got his head all up in there. I'm not even paying attention. He says, "Hey, what's going on?" And he was bringing to my attention Kobe's passing. And so at that moment, at that instant, I'm being honest with you, and I tell you this, I felt bad for him as a human being
Mm.
because I know what he was trying to do on the backside of his life, and that was to continue to help others get better. He knew what happened in his past. The photo of Kobe wearing number 8 and then 24 pulling them up. That's powerful to me because he was learning as number 8 and he was still dogging people in terms of his play on the court, but he was
Right.
still growing as a man. You know, and so his parents chose the road they chose. You
Yeah.
know, your parents could have did the same thing. B, your parents could have did the same thing. And at the end of the day, we have to decide what that support means to us coming from the people that helped gave birth to us or the people who love and support us. So that's a tough call, man. When you got to make that call.
Yeah. I want to say this before we continue with my next question. Um, when Kurt asked me that great question about did I get any pushback or any, strange looks or anything from my family or friends when I chose to marry an African woman. And I will say too, not to just throw my wife's family under the bus, but a lot of people, her family felt weird about her marrying me, who's an African American male. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because they believe, you should stay within not only within your West Africa, but mainly Liberia. She should have married another Liberian. And I always thought it was funny because, Liberia was founded by free slaves from America, and they have their maiden name was Howard. So y'all was from America anyway. So I am the real deal. So we always laugh about that now. And her family loves me to death. So she felt that same thing that I felt as well, just in a little bit of a different way. But I have
think
to
it's
ask
a
this.
common fear.
Go ahead.
It's a common fear not to cut you off. Think about where we grew up at and where we live. People who don't want you to leave the neighborhood have never left the neighborhood sometimes. And so they have a fear of what you may experience, which may be a setback. I don't see it as failure, it may be a setback. And so there's that fear when you go into a relationship with someone that they don't really know much about, but they're living off the stereotype of that person, then that's what it is. I mean, I saw Aries do a piece a couple of days ago talking about that, how other races see us that look just like us, ethnicities rather. So
And
we
that's
all got
why
to
I asked
educate each
that
other.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah. We all
Godfrey
got to
Godfrey
educate
talked
each other.
about that on Club Shay Shay, how a
Oh,
lot of our
Godfrey
African
crazy,
counterparts
man. That
look at
dude.
us,
Woo.
as less than sometimes. So you're absolutely correct.
And we
But
sat in the front row of the Godfrey show, and he didn't roast us. So I'm, peace. Like, dude,
but
I
see,
was sweating the whole
you and
time.
Godfrey are right around the same age. Y'all from the same part of Chicago, which is very diverse. And
Yeah.
he's seen that before. So he wouldn't roast you on something like that because he's that type of cat. He talked about how
Plus,
he's
I
dated
think he's
outside of his
done that
race too.
before too, right?
Right. He's dated outside of his race.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, but that's what it is, though. And I think Kurt, in terms of you're comfortable if you grow up in an environment that not only there are people that look like you, but you also people who don't look like you, and you learn how to communicate with each other, and that plays a role in you're being comfortable with who you are, number one, as a person.
Yeah.
Because now the intelligence thing is in play, but they get to see, hey man, this guy's pretty sharp, or he's not. So however you want to lay that one out,
Yeah.
that helps a lot with you as a human being. Because like you said, perception is what it is.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue into, how we grew up and our dating history, because all of that goes into who you marry, who you date, just being, social.
Yeah.
Your social construct. So, I mean, it's obvious to most people that have listened before. I grew up in Fairfield from Indianapolis, but grew up in Fairfield, and D was there as well. At that, no time in Fairfield did I actually date, make my girlfriend or tell. Matter of fact, I remember this one young lady that kind of pressed me. I remember she pulled up in front of my house, and a lot of our other brothers
Was over there.
no, a lot of our other brothers in Fairfield had their way with this young lady, and she pulled up in front of my house and tried to kiss me, and I told her, I said, "No,
I'm
my
cool."
mother let me kiss nobody in front of my house. I might even said my mom said my mom don't let me kiss no white girls in front of my house, but
Right.
the big reason I was an athlete in Fairfield, and I always felt, or I always, watched the coaches and watched, and I felt like they looked at guys different, that
dated white girls.
that dated white girls. Yeah,
Absolutely.
so at that point I did care about that, and at that point I really wasn't into white girls at all anyway. It wasn't until I was on an internship my senior year of college, and I was in Philadelphia, and I was working with Comcast Spectacor, who at the time owned the Sixers and the Flyers and the minor league ice hockey team, the Phantoms. And this, white young lady pushed up on me in the mail room. And after I thought about it, I said, man, don't nobody know me around here. I'm going to go ahead and try this out.
Right.
And what I found out is, we had a lot of things in common.
Keyword, in common. Doesn't matter what the race looked like. It's like, hey, we like the same music, we like the same food.
She was in the sports.
Vibe. Yes.
Yep.
Boom. Boom.
Like my wife, my wife that I'm with now and have been with for 17 years coming up. I mean, we watch a lot of sports together. She's big in sport.
She is,
And you get there's space no matter what relationship you're, no matter who you're with. We all enjoy certain things. You want to hang out with the fellas, you want to watch ball. They come in, ask you certain questions, you try to educate them, like why are they wearing mouthpieces? Okay, right, I'll talk to you a little bit.
That's my wife. That's my wife.
You know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter what color they are.
Right.
Y'all gonna ask some of the questions.
Right.
It's like, help me, Lord, please. Yes. But Kurt, exactly, man. What it is that calmness, and that's energy. That's positive energy.
Yeah.
So it don't matter what race they are. If you got that energy with that person, it's a beautiful thing.
But and I'm gonna let you answer that question, Uncle Gary. But I want to kind of preface it and kind of throw you an alley-oop, right? Because growing up, like my brother will tell you, my Uncle Gary was like our hero. You know what I'm saying? He's my dad's youngest brother. He was a football star. His girlfriend was the star cheerleader who was beautiful. You know what I'm saying? So like everything we wanted to be, he was already that. My dad let him drive his car on the weekends. You know what I'm saying?
Decision.
So like he was that guy, like he was that dude. You know what I'm saying? So we looked up to him big time. So having the start, having the star career and going to college and going to the military, man, and going and seeing the world and dating different people, like what was that like? You know what I'm saying? What was that like? Because again, that's the thing I love about growing up in Chicago. We was raised on the north side and the south side because my mom's family's from out there. But on the north side, we had white friends, Mexican friends. It was more diverse. Right. But you never really, I don't think you really even dated no white girls in high school. And you went to Lincoln Park.
I dated a young lady. Her name is Christy Crandall.
Okay. You like me? You be remembering names.
Yeah, that was like my God. That was coming off my junior year.
So you didn't bring her ground. You didn't bring her around then.
No, I just well, they knew about her because the phone would ring and she'd be on the other end, and so we weren't even going to those conversations. But I think one in my mind, if I did feel any kind of resistance, it was a resistance because of what my family experienced, especially my mom, growing up and seeing what people went through in the South. And I'll get to that point again here in a minute. But yeah, I dated a young lady my junior year, and that relationship came to an end. And at the end of the day, I remember how bad I felt when it was over. And I remember sitting outside on the practice field, sitting by a tree, and I was crying. And I got myself together. I started walking back into the school, and a young guy I'm still cool with named Eddie Wells, heck of a hooper. He said, "Hey man, your name's in the paper." I'm like, "For what?" He said, "You made first team all conference." And all of a sudden, anything I was thinking about went away. I was like, "Yep, here we go." You know what I'm saying? The head just started flowing, dude. I mean, like it was validation that I could play at a high level.
Yeah.
And no matter what relationship around me was not gonna deter that. And so on one minute I'm sulking like, and the next minute I'm like, okay, let's do this. So the high school thing taught me a lot in terms of the coach said certain things, but at the end of the day, coaches do look at you different. My coaches never looked at me like that. For one, my brother never looked at me like that. All he wanted me to do was play well and stay out of trouble, which at times I had trouble doing. But at the end of the day, he wasn't on me about who I was seeing and what I was doing. He wanted me to be on top of my game. My mom's was on something else because of what she experienced. During my junior campaign, right after, rather, we had coaches come into the school and, do their little recruiting thing. And one came from Alabama State. And I remember sitting down having lunch with him, and he said, "Hey man, we going to offer you Alabama State. We going to offer you a full ride." And my eyes lit up. And I'm like, "Full scholarship, everything?"
That's the swag.
Yeah, I didn't know much about those schools. Like these kids don't know. They know now because of the
Jackson
internet.
State and all.
I didn't.
Right.
I didn't. I didn't. But I knew they was offering me a scholarship. Went home, had a conversation with my mom. Told her, she's like, "Nope, you ain't going to school in the South." I didn't understand that then. She was trying to protect me in her own mind that she didn't want me going to a place that she thought that wouldn't be good for me. And I don't know if she had been to Alabama, but she knew it was the South. And
Right.
so all that came into play as I'm getting older as a human being, and her seeing, hey, he's going to be a little different. All right. Just like his little nephew, he's going to be a little different. They see things a little different. All right. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I got to still try to protect them. So like
Right.
Kurt said, some coaches see things different when they know that you're doing different things.
Right. And let me say this, Uncle Gary, I just had an epiphany, like an aha moment as you was talking. And we all know that my grandmother, your mother, her oldest brother, Uncle Dave, he was married to a white woman.
Yeah.
And that was in Chicago back in what, the 40s and 50s?
40s, 50, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Her family disowned her, from what I understand.
They
wrote her off.
Wow.
So maybe she felt like you and my brother, she's seen a lot of Uncle Dave. And y'all, you know what I'm saying?
No doubt. I mean, and then obviously.
So talk about that, how he was married to a white woman in the 40s and he got disowned. And that's right in our bloodline.
Yeah, he was still good to go up from what I understand in our household, but his wife was disowned by her family at the time. And race is race. And I think people disown you first as a human being, and then they use the other reasons to disown you. And so once again, it comes back to when people don't know what they don't know, they allow themselves to think a lot of different things, and that's on them. But I didn't think it was adverse. I didn't really get to meet Uncle Dave. I think he passed a while right after my birth. So at the end of the day, I heard what I heard from my mom. And at the end of the day, he did what he felt like he needed to do at a very difficult time. You go back to Lovey's story. That's what that was. But she was loved by our family, and that's all that mattered to me. So from what I heard, and at the end of the day, I said a lot. People are going to be who they're going to be, and they're going to live the way they need to live. And as Kurt lives and breathes right now, he will do damage to anybody that tries to hurt his family like you would do for yours. And I believe that. And it's not because we want to mean people, but we're going to protect them. And so my mom was the same way with me, but in a different manner. And just like my family, I never, if anybody came around our house that didn't look like me, that was Caucasian, they got love. They were loved. Our family lawyers, the Cunninghams, love.
Jack Rosen.
Love, period. Jack Rosen. Oh, Jack, get Jack.
That was my grandma's guy, the family lawyer, Jack Rosen.
So when you think about race and those relations and the doctors, Dr. Rubio.
Dr. Rubio, right. The first Indian
saying?
cat I met when I was like 5 years old. That was my grandma's doctor. He was Indian. Yep. You right.
So the dating thing may be in question, but the professionals who help take care of us and get us out of harm's way, there was no color line. All right. They can help us. And so that's obviously a different thing. But I think I took from that as well that it's okay to have that. And so, at the end of the day, getting back, I want to get back to Kurt's point, it's different when you're an athlete. You're a star athlete. And I think for me, D, getting back to Uncle Dave, I will always have mad respect for my uncles, man, period. And I'm always trying to do this without getting emotional. I got to calm myself down, from Dave to Leroy to Butter and Tree. They always supported me no matter what I was doing.
They did.
I can tell you that with all honesty, and it's just the way that was for me. It was my mom who was more protective of me and concerned about something happening to me. They were like, maybe because they were World War II veterans. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
I mean,
right.
And they kind of went through some things. They saw some things. So, and I think they spent some time in Europe, which is what I did.
Yeah, they did.
And I saw things in a total different light in Europe. Yeah. So,
and it's funny. It's funny you bring this up because as Uncle Butter got older, like me and him became super tight. Like we would talk on the phone even when I was in Ohio. When I only had two people when I'm in Mississippi, and that was him and my grandma Ruby. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he told me when he was in Germany in World War II, he didn't want to come back home. He said the food was great, The jazz scene was popping over there, and he did not want to come back
They
home.
were
I
loved.
think it was Uncle Dave that passed away. Is when he came back home. Something happened in the family that made him come back home. So it's funny you said that.
Yeah, I
But
mean that you're in an environment where you're loved for who
yeah,
you are as a human being. I've been reading Medgar Evers, his great book by his wife,
another
outstanding book. And
military
he
man.
talked about his time in Europe, and
Yeah,
he wasn't trying to come back home,
yeah.
and so it's also part of the environment they grew up in. It wasn't hostile towards them, and they were being loved no matter who they are, and that's important in any relationship. You're loved by who you're loved, all right?
Hmm.
And so then color, I'm not gonna say you don't see it. It's not an issue with you because you appreciate the love you get.
Right. And let me say this, man, before Kurt gets to his next question. I thank God for growth and development. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll
Oh
be
yeah.
47 years old in a couple months. And the person that's sitting here today is not the person that was maybe 5 or even 10 years ago, right? You know what I'm saying?
Talking
Because
about me?
I'm talking about me.
No, I'm
I'm
just
talking.
that's how this is.
I,
Hey, you don't came a long way, brother. I'm just trying to be right on your heels, man. But go ahead.
Man, if you got that speed, so you already cheating, bro. I mean, you got walk-on speed. Yeah, what they call it, closing speed in football. And you like stride for stride with them. Like, where you going?
right. But no, man, like I thank God for allowing me to grow and acquire more wisdom, and not be so closed-minded in my thinking as it comes to certain things, because I will be one of the people that would tell you, like, man, I ain't never marrying outside of my race. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna do it. Not that I had anything against white women or any other ethnic group of women. I just was wanted to be with my people. You know what I mean? And then again, I end up marrying an African sister, right? But
Bro, what I think I was a big proponent of that too. Like I was in my mind, I was the most militant of all my friends.
right, and that's why I think I told you this. Out of all my friends from high school, you would have been the last person I would have doubted that would marry outside your race, because always felt like me and you was the most two militant cats that ran in our circle. Everybody else was kind of dibbling and dabbling a little bit, and me and you was never really did that. You know what I'm saying? So, but you love who you love. But I say this, man, when you look at, have you ever heard of Dr. Umar Johnson? Because I gotta ask an Umar question. People will roast me if I didn't.
No, go ahead.
Umar is a brother who's a psychiatrist, child psychiatrist. I actually was friends with him at one point in time before he got mad at me. I actually brought him here for a couple lectures about 10, 12 years ago. And he's big on the internet doing interviews. And he talks about, how it's an abomination when you marry outside of your race. We need to stick together. These
An
people don't.
abomination to who?
It's an abomination to your people when you marry outside of your race,
People.
right?
Okay. The
Um,
people.
you got to stick together. Our ancestors fought, and we shouldn't be, marrying outside of our race, whether it's the brothers marrying the white girls or the sisters marrying the white men. When you hear people speak and talk about those different things, and talk about how marriage is a business, right? Leaving, money to another family, another lineage. But what do you think when you hear that conversation being had? Because it's prevalent online, not as heavy
Look,
as it was in the past, but it's
That
definitely
Kurt.
there.
That Kurt. Get
well,
that Kurt.
I'm
Get
familiar
that
with
Kurt.
him, so I would love to speak on it.
Yes, sir.
And it's not, for this first this first comment that I have, it's not just for him. I think we have a interesting the word I want to use is source on relationships that we go to. We go to people that are single. I love Dr. Umar's idea of his school, which he still hasn't built, but that's not what we're talking about right now. No, I don't want to do. That's not what I want to do. I'm just saying about the school that he's building. And I know he gets knocked for that, but that's not my problem. My problem is he constantly speaks about this, and he is not in the relationship,
let alone married.
let alone married.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. So, as he, the first thing he speaks about is his psychology doctrine, which I totally respect. I remember when he first came on the scene, he was defending that.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like now he has gone down this path, and that's all he ever talks about now, because I know it gets, views
The
whenever he talks
clicks.
about it. And some of the things, it resonates with me. I'm not even gonna lie.
Mm-hmm.
But I just, you know, he does not. First of all, he's not in a relationship, and second of all, I can't listen to a man that's had to fight, you know, fight, not, wanting to, um, give in to a woman. And then, even when I say that in the sense of race, it's men that they decide their own race that have problem giving in to a woman that they know they're in love with, that they got to come on in.
Yep.
So, man, I just think love trumps all. That's all I can say about it.
I agree.
Yeah, I think the other piece to it is too, man. It's my foundation. Everybody has their own opinion, and sometimes we give too much credit to someone who's just lived one lifetime. There are people who live one lifetime and have a lot of knowledge, but at the same time, we have to understand what are we giving to them that they're giving to us, and they're sharing something they believe. That's cool, bro. I mean, that's what it is. That's where religion comes in at too. People believe in their religion and they want you to believe in it with them as well. You
Yeah.
have to decide what your journey is and what your narrative is. All right. Because you got to go to bed every night. You got to wake up and go to work and do your thing. That's got to be you. Somebody sharing their thoughts on what they believe. Hey, I'm praying for them, man. Do your thing. All right. But you got to ride and be your own bus driver. Because at a certain point in life, and you're already there, almost you're 47. At 59, I'm still learning, but
Right.
it's going to be very hard to talk me into doing something like going to rob a liquor store. Okay, so
Right.
I'm like, it's just there's certain things that you go,
Right.
okay, yeah, I'm
It's a
good, bro.
non-negotiable.
It's non-negotiable. So
Yep.
people who have their opinions and ideas about things, that's what they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
And my buddy, man, he has a saying he wants to always be a master student. Yeah, you got all these people that there's teachers, they're doctors. Like, I just want to be a master student, a student that's always willing and able and in a position to learn and absorb much information as possible, right? To help make
Yes,
myself
sir.
the best human being that I can most possibly be. But before we get out of here, man, I really enjoyed the conversation. I wish we could continue to keep going, but I don't want to monopolize your whole evening. I know it's a 3 hour difference out on the West Coast, man. So
I'm cool.
so I'll have one, maybe two more, but I got to get this question in, man.
Okay.
When you look at relationships in today's society, right? I feel like, and we talked about this on our podcast when we had the sisters on here talking about, well, we felt like it was gender wars, how it's men versus women, right? Not even just black versus white, but just men versus women. A lot of women feel like they don't need a man; they can do it all by themselves, right? What would be your advice to some young brothers or even sisters that's looking to date in today's climate? Because it's a 12-year gap between you and I, and my dating scene wasn't your dating scene, but I don't think the stuff that these kids are going to, neither one of us went through in our era when we were out dating, right? So what would be some advice that you would give to some younger cats that's out here, looking to find that someone that they want to spend the rest of their life with potentially?
Yeah, turn your phone off for at least about an hour once a day. All right, put that away, and you know what I'm saying, that'll help you right there in
I agree.
yourself. And every time, think about wherever we are, and we see people, a group of people, they're doing what they do,
Yeah,
and they don't
All
understand
on
how to
their phones.
communicate with each other, but without that, everybody's out to dinner, but they're all on their phone. Nobody's talking
right,
about things, and so we've got to kind of get back to that. That's old school in all of us. We know that.
right,
But as parents, when we go out with the kids, they do turn the phone off. You got to have that conversation. But I would say you got to be comfortable who you are first when it comes to the dating piece. If you're looking for somebody to validate you and make you happy, then are you really happy?
mm,
Because that person gets up and walks out on you, are you going to be okay? You're going to
right,
hurt for a little bit, but can you move on?
right,
So that code of armor and understanding, I got to be good with myself first before I need somebody else to tell me I'm good or bad. And I always have that conversation with my youngest daughter. She'll get in the car after work and she'll want to tell me how her day is. And the first thing I said is bad, burn the tape. Okay, burn the tape, dude.
burn the tape.
And it stops because once again, somebody's influencing how you feel, and you want to get that off your chest, and it's cool, but you're letting them own you and drive your narrative. All right, and so you got to be your own self as a human being
Right,
first, and have that in yourself.
But
before you
I got to
start
give you
looking
some
somebody
pushback
else.
and say what the young people say and these therapists say. Feel your feels. Don't burn the tape, Uncle Gary. Feel your feels.
I got it.
I need to get that out, right?
What's up? I feel a certain kind of way. That's the one that drives me nuts. Like, what do you mean you feel a certain kind of way? What does that even mean? Just say you hurt or life sucks. Just tell me that, But
Right.
at the end of the day, I'm not. Hey, if you're taking advice from me, cool. If you don't, that's cool too. I still got to pay the bills up in there along with my wife. So, and I still got to do what she told me to do as far as getting south of me because she's a hell of a cook, man. And at the end of the day, relationships work because people communicate. And
Yes.
you're gonna have that time we gotta take time out and hey, I got it. You know what I'm saying? You
Right.
go there,
Right.
you go there. And so young people have to understand that there's gonna be tension in relationships. You
Right.
gotta understand that. And so, like you guys said, marriage is a business, but it's a
Yes.
loving business if it's loving right. And
Right.
so these young folks right now, they're gonna learn that. And I'm praying for
Yeah. Yeah. Kurt.
Yeah, I would say to to the young guys, specifically to the brothers that may only date white girls. I would say, man, get out that bag. Date, you know,
them. Open up your aperture.
yeah, definitely date some sisters. See what that's about because the things that you may have hangups about may be a certain culture. It may be somebody that didn't grow up with a father. It may be somebody that, grew up in a impoverished neighborhood where they had to be tough, And not saying that woman is always the same. All
Right.
women aren't the same. But what I'm saying is that, you know, women are different, not just because of race. There's a multitude of things that go into it. It's culture, it's neighborhood, it's just sometimes who that person is and what type of drive they have.
Right.
So yeah, open up your,
Dating pool.
yeah, your dating pool and you know, I don't know anybody amongst my married friends that met somebody in a club. You know, Man, the best places to me is the grocery store, the
Yeah.
laundromat.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say church, even though it's church after hours, because we know sometimes, the church like the hospital. So it's a lot of times
You
it's
get some fixer uppers.
yeah. But the church still is not a horrible place. It's not a
Right.
No, not
Absolutely.
at all. Not at all.
Absolutely.
but you want to go these places. Um, a lot of people can hide things on these dating apps and a lot of
Yes.
things, places that you're used to. You might be 6 months into dating, a year into marriage, 5 years into marriage before you really find out
Who this
that
person
the
is.
person that you dating a stone cold freak on a
Yeah.
whole another dating
Yeah.
app. You
Yep.
know what I'm
Yep.
saying? So just I would say to these young people, man, get out and about in 3D.
Mm-hmm.
And, because you can find out a lot with a person's facial expression, reacting
Mm.
to
Oh
something.
yeah. The physical communication tells you everything if you can read it.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that would be my advice, man. Just get out there and live. It's an
Absolutely.
experience. It's a great experience.
Absolutely, man. Did you have any other anything, Kurt? I got one more, and then we can go ahead and shut it down. I'll let our guests get the closing remarks for the night.
Yeah. I would just say that, when you look at this, edition of Church After Hours, for a second, put aside your mirror that you might be holding up to us and listen, you know, listen to some other things. Um, just just don't be so closed-minded that you only listen to, one opinion on interracial dating,
Right.
interracial relationships. Some people don't even have friends of the other, race.
Yeah.
And At 44, I'm not anybody's first black friend no more. So you ain't got no you ain't got no black friends. Like I'm not the guy you're asking, hey, why do you
Right.
guys do this? Like we're not doing.
Right. Like, nah, man, we passed that.
Yeah, but get you some people and get you some culture. You know
Yes.
what I mean? And not saying don't take my words to say having a white wife is having some culture. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm just saying that, like Nas brought up the Japanese soul bar
Yeah.
before he put that out, a lot of us didn't know that if your grandfather like mine wasn't stationed in Japan like mine was.
Right.
But that's what I would say, man. Is uh learn something about other people.
Absolutely. And my last question is for you, Uncle G, man. First off, thank you for coming and joining us, man. We appreciate you. It was a fun conversation. I learned a lot, you know what I mean? Hopefully the people that's listening learn something and it'll, spark dialogue amongst themselves, like, comment, subscribe, share in the chat if you feel so. But my final question is, man, when you look at relationships and look at interracial relationships uh, in a vacuum, right? And you look at parenting interracial children, I think this is something that doesn't get talked about enough. A lot of interracial kids, my rec center, I have a few that come to my rec center, and I'm sure you've heard this. They're not black enough for their black friends and family. They're not white enough for their white friends and family. And you can answer this too, Kurt. Tell us, some things that can be beneficial to those parents that are parenting interracial children in today's time. Because, you know, I've never, we've never seen this many interracial children in our society like we are right now. And I feel like a lot of times we just always just go and classify them as black. And we do that because America did that, right? America started though. We didn't just make that up. America said one drop of black blood, you black, right? But again, these children have a white mother, a black father, white mother. So they are encompassing all of those things that make them up. So what type of advice would you give to parents that are parenting, interracial children?
There are a lot of different things we can take and go in that direction. We love who we love. It just so happens that person may not look like us
Mm-hmm.
physically. And that's my first and foremost thing. But you always have to be on guard wherever you are because people have an opinion of you. How do you handle that opinion? I went into other neighborhoods and someone said, "Hey, you don't sound like us," and they look just like me. So I've
Mm,
been there before and I felt that, And at the end of the day, that's sometimes how a kid is biracial may feel, and I
Yeah.
get it. Maybe not to that extreme level, but be who you are. Be honest with your kids
yeah.
about understanding what they may or may not see, but without making them fearful of being who they can be. That's important to me because people live in fear will never experience life. I'm
Mm,
just the way I see it. If you walk in fear of failure, you'll never know what it means to be on that journey because you can't be afraid to. And at the end of the day, I always tell my daughters, Peyton and Ashley, have a plan, a backup plan, a fourth plan if you can. Think that through. You got time to do that, especially if you're on your phone. But the best advice is be you. If you got questions, ask questions. Because to me, the only question that's not going to be worthy is if you don't ask me a question at all. Then I can't help you and share with you what I know. It doesn't mean I'm right, but if you feel comfortable asking me questions, cool. And also, get comfortable being uncomfortable in uncomfortable situations like the conversations we just had. People are going to see this and think, oh my God, that's them. All right. Whatever it is, whether you're black, white, Hispanic,
Facts.
that's what you got to deal with. All
right.
right. This is an honest conversation among American human beings talking about societal concerns, societal viewpoints and topics. So don't be afraid to have conversations with your children, whether they're biracial or whether they're black.
Right.
Period. Have conversations with them
Yeah.
and share your experiences with them. That's for me. But yeah, I definitely want to thank you guys for letting me come on. I am who I am in life because of my family, because of my friends, because of extended family like you, Kurt. It means the world to me. And like I said, D, your dad, you know how I feel about him. That guy has a lot to do with where I'm at in life because he kept me moving in the right direction. He never let me feel or see things that I thought or he thought would damage me in long term. And so same thing with your mom, man. Love her to pieces. So, and every now and then I got to make sure my brother's not getting too much of that bluebell ice cream, whatever he has. It's like calories, man. But those two people, man, they're more than just family.
Mm,
They're one of the reasons I breathe. Period. I don't want to let them down, and I don't really think about that a lot. But
mm.
my wife, my daughters, and my family, and those two, and then my cousin Darlene and Pookie and those guys, they mean the world to me. And definitely got love for Clark. So I want to get all those folks shouts out, and my little nephew Jay, love you, boy. So,
Yeah,
at the end of the day, guys, thanks for having me. Looking forward to coming back.
yeah.
Maybe 4 years from now we can talk about that draft.
That would be great. That would be great.
Oh man,
Yeah.
Kurt, you got me, dude.
Yeah, I would definitely want to echo what your uncle just said, D, man. A lot of people don't know, but your father, even in our friend group, how instrumental your father has been in my marriage. You probably know.
Mhm.
But yeah, he's talked me off of many cliffs. And the last thing I'll say about biracial children, man, ironically, biracial children has been some of the most courageous
Yes,
people in our history, in American
yes,
history. And I don't know what they've seen or what they've dealt with,
right.
but it's just happened.
Yep,
Yes, sir.
yep.
Yeah.
Yes,
It's
sir.
it's a fact, man. Well, man, great episode. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the conversation. Like I said previously, share it. Comment, like, subscribe, man. And Uncle Gary, we appreciate you for coming on, man. We enjoyed this conversation, and we'll see y'all next week on Church After Hours.
Yeah.
Peace.
And hopefully we can have Uncle Gary back, man. I think next season we need to have a military and black man conversation.
Let's do
Okay.
it.
Black
Let's do
Hey,
it.
men in the
definitely,
military. The things
definitely.
we
I love
hear,
to have that conversation.
the things
Yeah.
we hear, all that good stuff. What it can do for them, all
Yeah,
that stuff.
yeah. My
Yeah, I
opinions
would
about
love
that
that.
have kind of evolved a little bit as well. So
Whoa.
I'm a work in progress. You know
Whoa.
what I'm
Then
Definitely,
it's
definitely
definitely a
now.
conversation we
saying?
need
So
to have, right?
that's a little nugget for y'all for the next
All right,
conversation. Another good idea, Kurt. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that for sure.
all right.
All
Hey,
right,
All
I'm
right.
at
peace.
Love you
the
guys,
I'm
man.
at the beach, baby. So you know how that goes.
Yeah, yeah. He in Florida. Enjoy the rest of your
What?
time, baby.
Man, dude, I couldn't get down on a Greyhound, bro. I appreciate y'all, man.
All right,
All right,
peace.
love you, man. I'll holler at you.
Love you.